Well, welcome to Zoom Palestine. Aya, thank you for coming. And on Facebook, we have some people on Facebook Live. SK Tarjudeen Tahoe is watching, and some other names that I can't read. But anyhow, so welcome. We will. I'm going to talk about the watermelon to introduce the segment. I got a great email from Tom Cox about the use of the watermelon. So while we're waiting for people to come on, and first I wanted to mention also the issue of the Tent of Nations. I sent out an email to everybody about the problem with the Tent of Nations, and I'm hoping that everybody will write to their representatives if they're American, and I'm sure it would also be useful to write to uh, other politicians if you're not in this country. But the Tent of Nations is this wonderful peace center in Bethlehem. Tom Cox sent it to me from Brooklyn for Peace Group. That the it's been owned by the Nasser family on a farm for over 100 years, and they've been since 2001 a place where people from many different countries come together to learn, share, and build bridges of understanding and hope. And the family has had these programs for women and children also to empower them in the local area. And they welcome thousands of international visitors who um, work as volunteers. And the family is doing everything it can to promote the cause of justice and peace. Um, but what's happened recently is that Israel's after their farm. 1,000 fruit trees were destroyed by arson in May. And then in June, the Israeli military entered the farm with vehicles and bulldozers, destroying over 50 trees and damaging the terrorist land in the last few months. So the Nasser family has been under increased pressure as the pace of settlements expand. Construction of roads for settlers that restrict the movements of Palestinians and the use of checkpoints. That's why what Aya is doing, Aya, what you're doing is so important because things like this are the consequences of the expansion and the empowerment of the settlements, where they just feel free to do pretty much whatever they want. So we're sending letters about it to Congress. They're in court trying to stop the demolition of this wonderful project, and it would just be really awful if this wonderful peace center gets destroyed. So um, I got some emails from some people who are on this mailing list. They don't always watch it during the session, but they'll watch it later and read the emails. And they said they were going to send letters to their Congress. So while we're waiting, I wanted to, this I thought was so great how the watermelon became a symbol of Palestinian resistance. And I'm sure you know all about this, but many of us were not aware of the power of the watermelon as a symbol of Palestinian resistance. So in occupied Palestine, the watermelon is a symbol of resistance, with its colors mirroring the Palestinian flag, green, white, red, as I have around my neck. Um, this, by the way, was given to me by the track team from Palestine that was en route, and I bumped into them in an airport in Bahrain, and I was having trouble with my suitcase, and they, these young big guys, they helped me, and they gave this to me and asked me to spread their story. What their best player was from Gaza, and Israel wouldn't let him participate in the events. So this is another thing that Israel enjoys doing to torment Palestinians by not allowing them to participate in foreign events and sports events. Anyhow, so Its colors mirroring the Palestinian flag. This fruit can be seen from the stone walls of Gaza to the galleries of Ramallah, hinting at a political history of a cherished summer fruit. Over several decades, the Palestinian watermelon has become a public expression of cultural pride in artworks, representing the struggle against Israeli apartheid. Now, a new tradition is emerging online, uniting Palestinians worldwide and drawing influence from those who fought for free expression through the late 20th century. Since the protests sparked by Israeli violence in Sheikh Jarrah, their story, clearly encapsulated in a minimalist silk screen of watermelon, is experiencing a resurgence thanks to a younger generation of artists. So what I was thinking actually is when I have my protest um, about this issue at the Israeli consulate, I'm going to get a big watermelon and chop it up and give it out to people with leaflets. Give them a piece of watermelon. Um, so the after the Six-Day War, the Israeli government banned all public displays of the Palestinian flag and its colors, and any outward show of the flag, from publications to advertisements and even old photographs, could result in imprisonment or worse. And this shows the mentality of the Israelis after the war. They were totally out of their mind, totally irrational in their terror of Palestine. I think it's all also a lot of it. They felt guilty about what they were doing. So the any outward show of the flag could resent even imprisonment. So watermelon with its red, green, black, and white coloring became a subtle method for Palestinians to display national pride. Even holding a slice of fresh watermelon became an act of protest. You know, it is so crazy. In the 1980s, Zionist forces shut down a major Ramallah art gallery and arrested three artists, Nabil Anani, Suleiman Mansour, and Issam Badir, for incorporating the colors of the Palestinian flag into their artworks. Mansour, in a recent Al Jazeera interview, detailed how an Israeli police chief tried to bribe them into depoliticizing their art. He was trying to convince us not to do any political art, saying to us, why don't you paint? Why do you paint political art? Why don't you paint nice flowers or nude figures? It's nice. I will even buy them from you. He then instructed the artists to present their paintings to the IDF for permission before exhibiting, stamping each painting as either good or bad. Anything that fell into the latter category would be seized. Now, this is just what Hitler did to the German artists. He called them degenerate. I was just in MoMA yesterday. I saw a whole bunch of artists whose work Hitler called degenerate and confiscated it, destroyed it, and they escaped, many of them, but some of them didn't manage to survive. So this is exactly what the Nazis did, Hannes. The officer raised his voice and said, even if you do a watermelon, it will be confiscated. Mansour said, so the idea of the watermelon came actually from the IDF officer, not him. So before the Nakba in 48, Palestine was famous for growing succulent watermelons in Jenin, the Jordan Valley, and Atabet al-Batuf, and I've eaten them, and they're absolutely fabulous. And Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, started occupying Palestinian neighborhoods. Settler authorities bought in their own seed companies and flooded the market during driving the Palestinians out of competition. Farmers and agriculturalists will remark on the impressive size of Palestinian watermelons and their popularity as exports to Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. I thought I was looking at alien vegetables when I saw the size of the watermelons in Jordan, the Jordan Valley. They are so huge. The Jordan Valley has a very magical kind of minerals in their soil. Their soil is very unique. And the vegetables that come out of there are monster, giant, gargantuan vegetables. They look like aliens. And they're delicious on top of it. So the they so the Palestinians would distinguish from the locally grown watermelons and those grown in Israeli greenhouses, saving the former ones to eat, their own to eat, and using the Israeli ones to throw at IDF tanks and use as a weapon. In the decades since, Palestinians have reclaimed the watermelon as protest art against acts of Israeli terror. In the aftermath of the Second Intifada, Khalid Horani crafted a cute but powerful silkscreen series titled The Story of the Watermelon in 2007 that appeared in the Subjective Atlas of Palestine. The satirical work is receiving newfound attention for its subversive simplicity. Standing upright, the watermelon slice appears highly pixelated, conveying an innocent nature, yet it emanates a rosy pride against a stark white background. Horani incorporated a thin line of black seeds and shadows along the rind to make it look three-dimensional. He later isolated one silkscreen and called it the colors of the Palestinian flag. Horani is a former director of fine arts for the Palestinian Ministry of Culture and a central figure in the revitalization of Palestine's arts discourse. Along with Mansour and Anani, he co-founded the International Art Academy of Palestine. Harani painted a large-scale version of the watermelon for an exhibition in Toulouse, France, and various variations appeared at Darat Al Fanoum's fabulous art center in Jordan, in Amman, Jordan, and the Center of Contemporary Art in Glasgow. In recent months, he claims attacks on Gaza have conjured spirits of past generations through revival of their artworks. Art was remarkably present in this confrontation. Songs, logos, and graphics, Harani told Hyper Allergic. Art was recalled from history, media of years gone by. However, it was not only listed by people in Palestine, but by people everywhere. This was clearly reflected in the massive and unprecedented solidarity campaigns with Palestine and its struggle. So we have there's a book that's out, several books that are out, and videos, etc., that show these works. They're in graphic designs, and they're appearing all over the place. So here's a wall, digital artist art on a graffiti on a wall, and here's some more artwork employing the watermelon. So let's all go and eat watermelon. And I think that's so creative and brilliant. And I think this is why I love Palestine so much. I love the culture. I love the spirit of the people. They will not roll over and play dead. No way. So I welcome. Um, and would you like to introduce yourself and your work and your group?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Aya Ziada. I'm actually AMP's newest advocacy director. So I've been here for almost a month now.
Well, you're
And
doing a bang up job. You're sending emails out. You have so much going on.
thank
Good
you.
for you. You're
Thank you.
dynamo.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm actually a Palestinian American myself. And I've organized around the issue for as long as I can remember. But AMP's work is really, really important. You know, it focuses on educating the American public on Palestine, Israel. So we focus a lot on educating, giving resources. We're one of the biggest organizations within the country focusing on these issues. We also have, the biggest advocacy day that we do annually. And it's actually coming up here in September, where we train people all over the country from hundreds of different districts to go and lobby their Congress members and, talk to them about Palestine, talk to them about the issue. So it's really important work all around, and I'm very proud to be here.
Well, let me show your. I'm going to share the screen of your group actually,
Yeah.
so you can uh, see. So this is the home screen of your group, the American Muslims for Palestine, and it talks about You're involved in educating and organizing and your various campaigns. Should I take a look at your campaigns
Yep.
um, so we can Jerusalem? You're organizing, calling upon the protection of the mosques and Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. Here's I Love Palestine, a magazine, public library project, Nakba campaign. That's very important. I read
Mhm.
about that already previously. It was very Islamophobia and Zionism. What's the connection? I think that's a very important issue to consider. Gaza 10 years later. So you have really some wonderful campaigns that you're doing,
Mhm.
and your advocacy group is extremely important because
Mhm.
you're asking Congress to support weapons to Israel, and we sent out petitions about that, and we
Yeah.
had a whole program on McCollum's bill
Mhm.
last month when she was introducing it to inform people. Most people didn't know anything about it, and to put pressure on congressmen to support it. Now,
Mhm.
some people in our group have congressmen who are more flexible, and others like me I have Jerry Nadler and Chuck Schumer who are big Zionists. So, but I know I keep putting the pressure on them. Jerry Nadler, I happen to know personally, and every time I see him, I push him, you know, and I think that's what has to be done. And today,
Mhm.
of course, we're going to talk about this really incredible problem that of charities, groups that are so-called charities,
Yeah.
using the not-for-profit status, which is tax exempt, are funding these illegal Israeli settlements.
Mhm.
So that's what we want to hear. That and we got your email about it. We sent it out to everybody, and we're very concerned about this situation because this is taking advantage of American law. Um,
Mhm.
and um, this is very serious. And part of the problem is there are some groups within Judaism who have a misinterpretation of Jewish law and may feel that it's okay to cheat the goyim, you know, to cheat the non-Jew. You can't cheat another Jew, but you can cheat a non-Jew. So this kind of practice of cheating the government, of using not-for-profits, unfortunately, is in keeping with this twisted mentality in some elements of Judaism, where the normal ethical laws that would apply from Jew to Jew doesn't apply from Jew to non-Jews or
Mhm.
to the goyim. So this is a very serious problem, and it's so. Would you share your information with us? And if you want to share on the screen, you can do that too. I think so. But go ahead, tell us
Yeah.
what you have to say.
Yeah, so I think this is a very critical issue. I think it all goes back to just how much the American public doesn't know what they're contributing to, right? And oftentimes, I think the most critical thing about this issue is when you think about or talk about even, um, US funding going to Israel, a lot of times people strictly think about US government aid going to Israel, right? But there's a lot of different ways that money is funneled into, Israeli settlement expansion, into Israeli apartheid, into, oppressing Palestinians. And this is one of the ways. Um, and unfortunately, there's several different, nonprofits, 501c3 organizations that are tax exempt, that are utilizing their donations, their money to send to settlement expansion organizations based in Israel.
Okay,
Um,
so Hassam Khatri just joined us. Thank you, Hasham. Go ahead, Aya.
yeah, yeah. So one of the biggest organizations that is being focused on right now, as this issue is coming to the surface, is the Central Fund of Israel. It's one of the biggest, Israeli supporting nonprofits, and it's based right here in the U.S. in New York.
It's in New
actually.
York, right? Actually, I want
Yep.
to look up their address to go protest in front of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what are you planning what's your campaign going to be for them?
Yeah, so we've actually been urging people, it's actually on the um, action alert that you had just opened, and we can
Uh,
send people the link too. But right now, our main
that
focus is,
I'll
you
go.
know, a lot of nonprofits are donation based, right? They're donor based. So one of the first things that you want to stop doing or start doing is educating people on the issue. Like I said earlier, a lot of people don't know that this is happening, right? So if
Right.
people don't know that this is happening, they're not going to know what to do. So one of the first things is to educate yourself on the issue, to educate yourself on what the organizations are that are doing this.
Uh-huh.
So CFI is one of the biggest ones. And then right now we're just urging people to do the simplest thing of tweeting at Secretary Yellen,
Yeah, that's right
and
up here.
urging her. Yep.
Right there. It says take action now to amplify the Congresswoman's letter. Or Congresswoman Rashid Tlaib,
Yep.
Democrat, sent a great letter to the Secretary of Treasury urging her to review the 501c3 status
Mhm.
because it's really the Treasury Department that gives out these 501c3s, and they're supposed to be
Yeah.
hard to get and very strict. So how are they getting away with this? So that you're saying that to tweet Secretary Yellen.
hmm Yeah. Tweet Secretary Yellen. And you're gonna wanna, we have some sample tweets right there. Just urge her to pay attention to the letter that Representative Rashida Tlaib had sent out.
And let me
And
just clarify, this is on the AMP website, American Muslims for Palestine website. So this is where
Mhm.
you can find all this information. Go ahead, Aya.
Yeah. So we have a bunch of action alerts. If you go to advocacy, you'll find this. It's one of the very first ones on there.
Mhm.
Um, and you'll just, the simplest thing is tweeting at them, and it's the very least that we can do. But I think by educating people on the issue, um, and just tweeting at them, urging her to look at the letter, urging her to do something about it and look into these organizations, and just applying pressure, on this,
Mhm.
on the federal level, applying pressure on our Congress members
Mhm.
to urge Secretary Yellen themselves as well is very important.
Now, what is the well, how is Israel? How are these committees defending themselves? What's their argument?
Um, so a lot of them have been interviewed by several different reporters in the after all of this information had come out, and they'll claim that they're not doing any illegal activity, that they're not involved in settlement expansion, um, but in reality, they are. And I think one thing that's important to note, for example, just how clear this is and how on the surface it is now that, these organizations can no longer hide from it. Um, the Central Fund to Israel funds is the funds the majority of the ILF, which is the Israeli land funds within Israel that is based in East Jerusalem and works to build settlement expansion within East Jerusalem. They fund the majority of the ILF
Oh, they're the
and
ones
their mission.
working in Sheikh Jarrah, right?
They are, right. So this organization was founded by a man named King, who is a deputy mayor and of Jerusalem, and he's a settler who lives in the Palestinian neighborhood of Ras Al Amud.
Is he
And he's,
American by birth?
what's that?
Is he an American by birth?
I'm honestly not sure about that, but he's a settler, which is bad enough within itself, right? And he actually mocked this was huge a few months ago, but he mocked activist Muhammad Abu Hummus for being shot in the back by Israeli forces. And he literally stated, something similar to the fact that it was a shame that the bullet didn't go through Muhammad's head, pretty much advocating for
I
getting
remember
rid of
that. Yeah,
Palestinians. Yeah.
right. Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
so this is
Jennifer.
the founder of the
Yeah. Yeah.
ILF, which is being funded by the Central Fund of Israel right here in the US, right? And the goal of the ILF is to buy land on Palestinian territories and sell it to settlers, of course. Um, and the majority of the budget comes from the Central Fund of Israel. So it's not something that could be hidden when the mission of the ILF is to perform settlement expansion. And right now, we've been focusing a lot on neighborhoods like Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan in East Jerusalem because they're being ethnically cleansed as we speak. And these two organizations are actively playing hand in hand, and getting rid of the indigenous population on the land and expanding settlements. Um, and I think, you know,
Do you know who the big donors are for that group?
for the land of Israel.
Yeah, CLN, whatever it's called.
So the
The
Central Fund of Israel is the one in the US that is funding.
Yeah.
Um,
So who funds where, or who are their donors? Do you know who their donors are?
they don't have them on, I was trying to find them. They don't have them on their website.
So they keep it
Um,
secret.
so
Yeah.
they keep it secret. Their donation page is very like straight to the point, like donate here. And I think you like have to donate a check or something too.
What? They will deduct that donation from their income taxes.
Mhm.
So this is the second layer of
Yeah.
corruption.
So the money comes back to them pretty much.
Exactly. They get a
Yeah.
deduction on their income taxes, right?
Yep, exactly. And so that very thing goes against US tax code, right? First of all, they're using their donations for something that's entirely illegal. Not only does it go against international law and international human rights law, but it also goes against US morals, it goes against US law, and it goes against US tax code. So it's breaking several different uh, laws, and the way that it's being easily funneled is the fact that they're tax exempt,
You need
right?
a
Which a
mole.
lot of people don't realize.
You need to get a mole inside, and find out who these big donors are and
Yeah.
shame. You know, uh, I mean, I'm sure Sheldon Anderson, now he's dead, but thank God. But his wife, I'm sure, is still funding. They were big funders of settlements. There's certain gazillionaires that we know who are big funders of settlements, and I'm sure that they're, big money behind it. And that would be a really important thing to find out, because
Agreed.
guys also were funding Trump.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of them were
Well, yeah.
also funding Trump. So nobody, people are angry about funding
Hmm.
Trump. So if they connected the dots and saw the same people supporting these Israeli settlements illegally,
Hmm.
criminally, were supporting Trump, hello, that could be helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's why it's super important for us to start by, educating people on the issue and
Right,
continuously urging Yellen to respond to
right,
Representative Rashida Tlaib's letter, because that's the first step, right? She has the power to open up an investigation,
yeah, yeah,
and deem whether or not these organizations are being involved in illegal activities. And I think people try to complicate the issue too much, but the basis is, if you are funding illegal activity, if you are funding organizations based in Israel that are building illegal settlements
right,
on Palestinian land after there have been multiple, UN recommendations that have come out that state that this is illegal, that settlement expansion must stop.
right, right.
That should be simple enough,
Not, it's very clear. Uh,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, like connect the dots. Nasir Hussein Sahib, welcome. Thank you. They're all coming on Facebook Live. Thanks, Nasir. We're talking about how we're going to get rid of these not for profits, and we need to expose the big money. I'm a big believer in using public shame for these people. And a lot of them, as I said, were Trump donors. So they're
Hmm.
already tainted.
Hmm.
But they have to declare it in their income taxes. So
Hmm.
it's public record. So maybe they're not listing their donors, but the government knows who the donors
Yeah,
are.
that's a good point.
So if you got the government, and you can get the government to, they finally got them to let Trump's tax forms go, but it might be worthwhile to begin a suit to ask for a revelation of who these donors are to this organization. Because
Right.
if you could stop their tax exemption, where they declare their contribution on their income tax, and then they get deduction for it. If you could stop that, that would be very useful in terms of stopping the big money going there, because that's one of the main reasons they do it. You know,
Hmm.
uh, so I don't know. who, yeah, I mean, I know, there are lots of groups who worked on the tax thing for Trump, but I think there should be help out there for you to follow up on the donor thing because
Mhm.
if the donors dry up, then their things dry up. But in addition to shutting them down, now what's been the result? Has Janet Yellen responded to any of the tweets?
There is no public response yet. We haven't seen any sign of a public response, which is why it's incredibly important for people to continuously, you know,
Yeah,
bug
yeah,
her about it and urge her to respond, and also urge your Congress members.
yes.
We only had 6 members sign on to this letter. So
Oh wow.
I think it would be beneficial also for people all across the country to be urging their Congress members to, hey, it might be too late to sign on to this letter, but
Well,
are you
that
for?
the people in Brooklyn for Peace sent letters.
Mhm,
There was a template that went out, and they sent letters. Now we had the other thing is because they're in New York State, most of them. Letitia James had a big protest in front of her office last week in Brooklyn
mhm,
by people who wanted her to start an investigation of the illegal use of not-for-profit. Now, she's pretty open to this, but this is New York, so you have to be careful of the Jewish lobby and yada yada yada. Now, groups like Jewish Voice for Peace, they are behind this because they don't like the settlements.
yeah,
So you've got Jews that are also backing you up. But
mhm,
I don't know what happened. I wanted to go to the protest, but I have a bad asthma and lung thing, and it was a day. It was very hot, and there was an alert about bad air,
mhm,
saying if you're older or if you have any lung conditions, don't go out. So
yeah,
I didn't go, and I felt really badly because I wanted to go. But now this week, I'm just going to give her office a call and leave a message every day just to annoy them,
mhm,
you know.
yeah. See,
And
there's a lot of different ways that we can act. You can protest, you can call, you can email, you can do so many different things. And honestly, they're very simple things that we should be doing, and
yeah,
they're the least that we could be doing as well, considering so much of the funding, it goes beyond. You have US government aid, right? Just like this week, another year of annual budgeting for the Israeli military was
so
approved,
depressing. I
right?
read that. Yeah, it was so
Yeah,
depressing. What was it,
yesterday
300 something crazy like that?
it's $3.3 billion, which was actually already established in the MOUs in 2016. So it was already established on a 10-year span that
Yeah.
Israel will receive $3.3 billion annually. However, Congress needs to approve it every year. And of course that they do, because Israel receives the most funding and it's unconditional, which is another thing that people could be continuously talking about, right? And just yesterday, the State Department also approved selling Israel heavy lift cargo helicopters from companies like Lockheed Martin. So, there's so many different ways that the US is contributing, from nonprofits to companies like Lockheed Martin that create, the machine guns, the heavy lift cargo helicopters, the things that are used to bulldoze houses, Palestinian houses, in order to build settlements.
Cat,
So,
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of ways that the US is contributing to illegal activity, just to simply put it. There is no other way to put it. It's very simple.
The Jewish lobby the Israeli lobby, I should say, they got so many states to pass anti-BDS laws
Yep, yep.
so that if you want to
Hmm.
boycott Caterpillar or HP or any of these things, you can go to
Yep,
jail for it or get in
yep,
trouble, or your company will be defunded by the government. It's really outrageous. It's like you wonder how the hell this happened,
yep.
and it's a tribute to how skilled the Israelis are at
Hmm.
all of this. And the other issue is that contributes to this is their selling of surveillance equipment
Yep,
around the world. So
yep.
they can spy on everybody and find out
Hmm.
ahead of time what people might be up to and then try to sabotage it or
Hmm.
counteract it. Another strategy that you might consider, and I'd be willing to help with this, is when we were having the election, this was a very annoying strategy, but it worked. Um, is I think it was moveon.org that sponsored this, but you volunteer to write like 200 postcards
Mm,
to various representatives and to various people and representatives. So you might consider, getting volunteers. I mean, I'd be willing to do it. Do you send us, even 50 postcards, 100 postcards, and we send them out with the information on the front, like the
mhm,
the logo that was sent out for the protests at Letitia James. You can just put something simple on the front and then mail these out and get lots of
mhm,
people to mail them out. I know friends who would be willing to do it. We did it for the election. It was
mhm.
annoying, sit and write all these postcards, but these things work.
Yeah, they
I,
do.
yeah, so emailing, telephone. Now,
Mhm.
what are your court actions right now? What do you have going in court? Legal? Do you have any legal challenges going on
For Palestinians right now?
for the for this issue on boycott on the funding? Do you have any
Well,
legal?
on the funding, I don't know that there's anything legal. That's why we're trying to urge Yellen to start an investigation, right? That's the first step. An investigation needs to happen, which is why I'm going to keep saying people need to keep bugging her, email her, tweet at her, tell your Congress members. This
Send
is
100
something,
postcards. I'll get 100
send them
people
postcards.
and
Yeah, and
people. No,
I highly recommend, subscribing to our newsletter because we send action alerts very often on this issue and other issues where we make it very easily accessible and
okay.
digestible and easy for people to be involved. Things are already ready. There's scripts. There's a button that you literally press and it helps you send an email. There's so many different ways that you can act.
Right on
And
the website. Right.
yeah,
So
that's our
go back to the
organization
website and
statement.
you can show me perhaps exactly where we could find this. So we were looking
Yeah.
at this, so
If
let's
you
go
just
back to the action alert. So
if you
where
just
would this?
press If you just press at the very top left where it says AMP, the big AMP, press on that
Yeah.
again.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then if you scroll down a little bit, it says subscribe right there. Stay
Uh,
informed. Oh,
yeah.
there you go.
Okay. Right. So
Subscribe to
that's
our
where.
emails.
Okay. Everybody see this, and I'm making a film of this, so this will go out to all the people who are concerned. We have almost 400 people who are on this mailing list and are concerned.
Mhm,
All right, so here, subscribe, so that way you'll find out. Okay, great, great,
mhm,
thank you.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so have you heard anything about the Letitia James demonstration? Any feedback from that?
No, I think any demonstrations happening are wonderful. I think, we've gained so much momentum in the last few months,
Uh,
more than we ever have, right? There's to
right.
say that I think everybody is really happy with how far we've come. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of damage being done,
How old
but
is the group, by the way? How old is your organization?
the group is over 10 years old.
Oh, it is. Okay. And
Yeah.
who founded it? Who was the founder?
I am slipping on the name. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay.
But hold, one sec. Um,
I presume it was an American Palestinian, right?
yeah, it's predominantly American Palestinian. So we have a board. If you go on our website, there's like everything there. You can see the whole team. We actually just renovated our website too, so it's brand new and fresh, and we'll be adding a bunch
Well,
of new stuff.
academics or professional? What was their background that they felt committed to get together and do something like that? What was their background?
I think that it's very diverse. There's a lot of academics, a lot of our team, whether it's the board members or the staff, is in academia. So we have people that are professors, like our director, Dr. Osama Abdul Shade. He has a PhD. He's dedicated most of his life to doing this work. He's a Palestinian. The
Where's
majority of the team is Palestinian, which is very important because unfortunately, as much momentum as we're gaining, oftentimes when the issue of Palestinian rights has been brought up, Palestinian voices are drowned out. And nobody really listens unless it's a non-Palestinian
Yeah,
speaking on the issue.
that's right.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
problem.
So
There's
the
plenty of
organization,
voices around.
yeah,
Actually, next week we're going to have Farid Bichar, the poet. He's going to read his new book, Screaming Olives. And he got very upset with me when I said, well, Palestinians need voices. He said, they have voices, there are plenty of people speaking. And he was right. It's just that everybody isn't listening, but there are plenty of
yeah.
voices speaking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think right now we're in a very critical time where we should be uplifting Palestinian voices and the diaspora and back home, the people that are fighting the big fight right on the grounds, you know.
And
We
to
have, yeah,
preserve culture and heritage.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Now, tell me about yourself. How did you get involved? You're a very beautiful young woman.
Thank
You
you.
could be, in a sauna somewhere or, modeling or whatever. Why are you doing this? And what brought you to do something like this?
Well, you know, we were talking about watermelon earlier, right? And our symbols of resistance as Palestinians. I think so. My grandparents on both sides of my parents were actually exiled in the first Nakba.
Uh,
Um, and they were forced out of Palestine
1948.
entirely in
1948.
48.
Right.
In 48. And so my parents were born in Kuwait. I was born in Amman, Jordan.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, yeah. So I think any Palestinian that you speak to has some level of resistance in them. I think it's something that we're naturally born with. And, you know, there's something, I can't remember the statistic or something, but we are, I think, the most educated people in the world. And it's because of the fact that we have very little to hang on to, right? We are,
Gaza, they said the population of Gaza is one of the most highly educated, most learned
yeah,
in the world.
yeah. And I think we're forced to because we need something to hang on to, right? Unfortunately, we need to prove ourselves to people. And we are all over the world. We are one of the biggest refugee bases, exiled peoples all over the world, right? We don't have a right to return. So really being educated and hanging on to our roots is what keeps the fight alive, right?
Did your
Um,
parents have a key to their house still?
we do, yeah. We have, so on my dad's side, we have some land, but unfortunately we've been fighting Israel for years because they want to build settlements on them and they won't give our family the land. Um, but yeah, we do have a key because most Palestinians that left you know, they kept their keys because they thought it was going to be temporary.
Yeah, right.
And so I've been involved in this work since I could remember. I started leading protests when I was 16, 17 years old, and I've been
Really? Wow.
organizing. Yeah, I've been organizing in Colorado for quite a while.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Colorado, so I've been organizing here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have more liberal mentality there, except for the lunatics. That you have like a diverse thing. You
yeah.
have either people on the far right or the far left. I don't know how much is in the middle.
Well, we just flipped to blue. It was a purple state
Yeah,
up until 2018, and
yeah,
then we flipped to blue. It
yeah.
is pretty liberal, except when it comes to Palestine. You know, they say progressive except for Palestine.
Keyword
That's true
is
everywhere.
keyword, right? It's everything
Yep.
but keyword, right? Yeah.
Everything but Palestine. So it's definitely been a challenge. And I've been in the political space for quite a while. I'm actually finishing up my master's in international human rights as well.
Excellent.
Um,
What
the Joseph Corbell School of International Relations at DU.
are you having any problems or feedbacks because of your Palestinian activism?
You always get that, especially as a Palestinian. You know, there's a lot of fear surrounding it. You have one side, which is the US and Israel pushing back against you. And then you have your own people that are afraid for you because being Palestinian and being an activist and outspoken isn't awfully safe
Fearful,
most of the
right?
time,
They're
right?
afraid to open their mouth.
Yeah, so you're being
Yeah.
pulled apart in so many different directions. And especially being a Palestinian American, I've always kind of felt this imposter syndrome because, again, especially when you see you're surrounded by people and you're in the political space and they're so progressive and liberal until it comes to Palestine, right? And it's like, how do these people who fight in the streets for Black Lives Matter, who speak up for the indigenous population of the US, who are so woke, as they say, but then when it comes to Palestine, probably 95% of them retract themselves, and it has to do with several different things, from unconditional support of Israel being the biggest ally, to how long it's been a taboo topic
Mm.
within the US, where you can't talk about it unless you're supporting Israel, to people maybe not being educated enough on it, which I don't like to give the excuse of, because especially given the last 2 months, right, when the ethnic cleansing and the police brutality against Palestinians was lively broadcasted and for the world to see, right? So
Still
the
people,
excuse of
mm,
yeah,
you know,
the excuse of ignorance is
want,
bliss is
yeah,
it doesn't work anymore.
yeah,
But there's a lot of different things that have maybe put a blockade, especially with the Democratic Party, on how you can speak up for this. Even there's a lot of outspoken Congress members that have been speaking up for Palestinians for the last few
great,
months, who
true,
voted yes on the aid going to Israel, right? And there's a lot of different reasons why. It's because, yes, are we have so much momentum right now. We're at a critical point where people are seeing us and hearing us more than ever. However, this is not a new issue, and Israel being supported by the US has been a thing for a very long time. So it's going to take an army. It's
yeah,
going to take persistence. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of people and effort for us to, get into the crevice of things and stop all of these issues, stop the US from enabling and abetting um, ethnic cleansing.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and that
I
takes
think that
for people.
you just have to speak truth to power. Gandhi said, "Speak truth to power. Ultimately, truth will win." But
Mhm.
it's exhausting and depressing and
It's exhausting.
overwhelming. But I think that I wish somebody like Rachel Maddow would really do something on this. She's avoided it like the plague. She did say something about something recently. I don't remember. I was surprised, but she avoids it, and I'm like a big fan of hers. But Amy Goodman, who does Democracy Now, really is very outspoken about the Palestinian thing. So, um, but from mainstream media, still they're terrified, and for right so, because the Israelis have a very big army going after anybody who
Yeah,
they consider
right.
a threat or will. So you're very brave to be doing what you're doing. And
Thank
what
you.
are your plans when you get out with your master's in international relations? You said,
Well, I'm gonna go full throttle with this role. I think it's very necessary. We're at a very critical point right
yeah,
now where the dynamics are shifting. And I think if we continuously push, and I think we have a duty as Americans overall, right? We can blame Israel all we want, but they wouldn't be here without unconditional
yeah.
US support.
And
And so,
too, that it's a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of opposition to what Israel's doing by the Christians who are being persecuted, like this
right,
10 nations thing, and Jews who are embarrassed by what
yeah,
Israel's doing.
yeah,
And a lot of them are reluctant to come out of the closet. They're afraid to speak up because their
mhm,
families are going to go ballistic on them.
mhm,
That's what what happens to me. My ex-husband is Jewish, and my relatives, I'm forbidden to mention anything about Palestine, except with one relative who's like pro. He's in
mhm,
Canada and he's pro Palestine. But
yeah,
it's astonishing how intimidated you can be
mhm,
because family and friends just, I have a
yeah,
friend of mine who's Jewish who's very pro Palestine, but she can't even talk to her husband about it.
yeah,
People are very intimidated. And I think the history of the Jews is, they've been so mistreated and abused that they can't go beyond their own need for survival.
mhm,
What gets me is that people who invented psychology, like Sigmund Freud and stuff, don't understand that stealing people's land and abusing them, torturing them, arresting, killing them is not going to make you more safe. It's just
no,
going to bring
it's
you
not
more
going to make you
enemy.
feel better. It's going
And
to continue to repeat the deadly cycle.
exactly,
That's
yeah.
all it's going to do, because psychology is powerful.
Their excuse is, well, Israel has to be safe. Well, it's
Yeah.
making you safe if you're creating all these enemies. And
Yeah. And you can't be safe at the expense of others. You can't find peace at the expense of a whole entire population of people, you know? And that's coming from people whose ancestors and, you know, direct relatives went through something like that.
yeah,
So it really is interesting how psychology works, but I think that the issue is just so much, we've been censored so much too, you know. It's beyond just like the basic power of the hold that they have on us, but also the way that they censor the truth. But I think that they are intimidated now,
yeah,
and rightfully so, because the truth is no longer being censored as they wish it would be. You know, a lot of young people are taking to social media, like Muhammad Al Kurd and his
yeah.
sister Mona, who are at the front lines of this. You know, their court date is actually on Monday, where they're fighting for their home.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which is another thing. We have partnered up with several different organizations, Palestinian, Jewish Voice for Peace, a bunch of different organizations doing Jerusalem Action Month. Um, I'll be sending out another email soon
Oh,
regarding that. But if you go to our social media, you'll find the toolkit that we're using.
yeah,
And it goes hand in hand with the 501c3 thing because it has to do directly with settlement funding. And right now, the 501c3 issue, the nonprofit issue, goes hand in hand with what's happening in East Jerusalem because that's where the settlement expansion is happening. So I urge you not only to tweet at Secretary Yellen, but to also go to our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter pages, share the toolkit,
yeah.
join us during Jerusalem Action Month, and you know, let's do the bare minimum to try to keep the momentum going.
I'll share this with when I send out the film of this interview. I will share all that information with them. And if there's any other links you want to send me, send them to me, and I'll include them because, you know, the people who are concerned, who are connected with this Zoom Palestine, they're very serious,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are not here now because there's another demonstration that they were at. Um, but they will follow up. They will mail letters. They will sign petitions. They will do things. You should go on a speaking tour. You're very good, very
Thank you.
personable, and you would be shocking for people to see
Thank
this
you.
beautiful young woman coming up with this subversive. I think you should go on like a speaking tour as an advocacy person. You should think about that, and go
Thank
talk to churches. You know, you can get invited to churches. They all have what they call education programs and synagogues. They all have like adult education programs and just offer to come in and just give a talk
you.
explaining what you do in the situation. People would invite you to come, you know, and
Yeah.
you can go outside Colorado. I mean, I can think of several places I could have you speak here in New York. So if you want to
Hmm.
come to New York, let me
Yeah,
know.
of course. Well, I'm moving to DC in September, so
Oh, great. Oh, that's
yeah,
wonderful. Then you could
yeah,
come
yeah,
here. Yeah,
yep,
excellent. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you
I'd love
should
to.
because you have something to say and you have a wonderful voice and a wonderful way of saying it.
Thank you.
So I'm extremely grateful that you joined us today.
Yeah,
I
thank you for
hope
having me.
I hope that we can become a right arm for you in this struggle because the more people who know about it, the more people get involved, the more things will change. It's when they're in the shadows and all this corruption is in the shadows, they can keep doing it. But once the light is shown on it, then it's the beginning of the end for them.
Hmm.
And I think that this illegal funneling, so you got to go after, try to find out the donors. Maybe the American
Hmm.
Civil Liberties Union might have some
Yep.
legal help available for you. The Southern Poverty Law also, who's done a lot, because if you find out who these donors are, what their tax exemptions are also illegal.
Hmm.
So if this gets questioned, this is going to make them have to pay back taxes
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah.
They're going to owe money. So expect going to try to silence you and assassinate you. But beside that, that's a lot
Oh,
of
it's
money.
fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
used to it. I have people
It's
slash.
yeah,
I have a
uh,
poster of Rachel Corrie on my door, and I have one of my crazy psycho Zionist neighbors coming and slashing it regularly. And she looks just like my daughter, and my grandkids come like, I said, "Why do you have a picture of mommy on the door?" I said, "No, it's Rachel Corrie. She's the exact same age, and she looks very much like her." But some psycho comes with a knife and slashes her face. I mean, who does that kind of stuff? But there are people, there are crazy people out there. So just watch your back, take very good care of yourself, and stay in touch with us, and we will help. We're here to help. We're here to help.
absolutely.
Care. And besides we care, we're also mad as hell.
Yeah, you got to be mad as hell
Yeah,
for to do the
exactly.
work.
Yeah, yeah,
If you're
yeah.
not mad, you have issues.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, if you don't see the basic injustice of it and just kind of put up with it, you're
Yeah.
complicit. What was it? I think it was Martin Luther King, or somebody said, what I won't remember is the words of my enemies, but the silence of my friends.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
the silence of other Americans
Hmm.
who are good people, who are liberals. Hello, you know, who just cannot open their mouths. But we can change that. We can. It's happened before, and it can happen again. Um, so thank you so much for being with us. So we have a couple minutes left.
Thank you.
What's your next big action that's coming up?
Yeah, so it's what I just mentioned, Jerusalem Action Month. So we're really focusing on that. There's so many, Congress is about to go into recess. They're
Right,
all going to go home to their districts, and we don't think it's fair for them to live peacefully in their districts as they just approved several different spans of funding to enable settlement expansion,
yeah,
state-sanctioned violence against Palestinian. A lot of these issues are dismissed as like devastating Palestinians, devastating the Palestinian economy, cutting off access to Palestinian farmland and water, displacing communities, separating families. And to put it simply, it's simply illegal under international law and is not something that we should be supporting.
no,
We elect our Congress members. Our tax dollars should not be going to illegal activity. Um, so I think this whole month is going to be dedicated to that. And we're focusing very much on East Jerusalem right now just because they're
prince
taking the spotlight.
post
Yeah,
it
they're
around.
mhm. They're taking the hit of everything. So just keep a lookout, follow us on social media. All of our social media handles are AM Palestine.
Yeah,
Subscribe to our newsletter, stay in touch. We make the information easily digestible. I know that sometimes it's hard to read things, so we're always sure to make it very easily digestible, just like our emails that you
yeah,
just placed up there.
yeah,
We send action alerts at least once every week to every other week with very easy action items that have very clear instructions and make it very easy for you. Most of the time they don't take more than 5 minutes.
great.
um, and so, I think we have gotten a lot done in the last few months. We were just talking about changing people's minds and, you know, helping people come out of that intimidation and changing their mind and, showing up for the better. And I think the more that there is of us and the more persistent that we are, the more educated we are, the more intentional that we are, we're sure to make a change. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to happen overnight, but it's definitely going to happen so long as um, we stick to it and don't treat it as a trend like we always do.
Well, Hannah Arendt, the famous archaeologist, anthropologist, said it only takes 3 or 4 dedicated people to make the big changes. Everybody
Mhm.
else will come along soon, but you need, a couple people like yourself and dedication. AMP is very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And congratulations on all that you've done in the last couple of months that you've been there. It's awesome and very impressive. So
Thank you.
here's another person who came in, Fihir Make. Welcome, and glad you can meet this phenomenal, young, gorgeous young woman. And we send you our blessings and prayers for your success and protection. And we're definitely going to be, you'll be hearing from more of us. And next week we have Screaming Olives book of Palestinian poetry, the Palestinian American. Now, Farid is from East Jerusalem, and so he's very passionate about what's going on because his family's involved, it's just very painful for him. He came 2 years ago to visit me in Jordan, and then we went over to Jerusalem. He visited his family for the first time in, I don't know, 20 years or 30 years, and it was very upsetting for him to see what's going on. So, this is tragedy, human tragedy at the highest level. So we have to unite and
Yeah.
try to do what we can to stop it. So thank you so
Yeah.
much. I
Thank you.
it was great,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can spread the word and be of help.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Assalamu. Thank you.
Masalama. Bye.